This podcast is sponsored by Terraform Development is an engineering and architectural design studio company located in Flagstaff, Arizona. Co-owner and founder Eddie Kalnimtua supports the Hopi way of life and supports the next generation, including hiring Hopi professionals, individuals like Dr. Brianne Laban from the village of Tewa. Contact Terraform at 928-864-5022 extension 1, or you can email them at info@terra4orm.com or visit their website at www.terra4orm.com to learn more about Terraform Development. They can design your next home, manage your next construction project, or fly their latest drone equipment to get aerial views of your project.
Also sponsored by
Strong Ones. Strong Ones is dedicated to exposing cultural traditions of running that exist within many cultures and tribes worldwide through running apparel. Strong Ones is an individually owned business supporting cultural running traditions and supporting local organizations within the Hopi Reservation. They can be found at strongones.myshopify.com. Again, that's strongones.myshopify.com. They are also on Facebook at Strong Ones 15.
Good morning, Hopi land. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man. Thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast.
Oh, are we recording?
I think we are recording.
I'm updating my fantasy football picks. Just give me a second.
Hey, shut up.
Today's Sunday. Happy Football Sunday to all the football fans out there.
Sunday it is.
Go Cardinals, and then I guess go the rest of the bandwagon teams out there.
Yeah.
That
go Washington
our
team.
Love to cheer for.
I want to root for the Washington team.
You want to root for the Washingtons, huh?
They're not that Redskins anymore.
No, they're not.
No, they're
not.
They're just called Washington Football Team.
Yep. So I like it like that.
Yeah,
I like that team name. I think that team name suits.
We should change the Arizona just to Arizona Team.
To Arizona Brown People Team.
Arizona Brown People Team with that one black guy in there. Don't worry, I'm native. We can say this kind of stuff.
If today's not controversial enough, Carl's comments just might be the one to kick us off the anchor platform here.
Probably so.
And so, that's kind of the interesting thing about today's episode is that, last week's episode we're discussing something that was probably, semi-controversial, urbans and res natives. But today we're talking about something that is very controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very controversial topic today. And that's going to be Hopi and Navajo relations.
Oh, man. Hopi and Navajo relations. See, I grew up with Navajos. So I really don't have any controversial things to say about them.
Everything controversial has been said already, huh, on your end?
On my end, yeah, exactly. So, because I left, what was it, not boarding school. I left,
public school.
Left to public school.
Yeah.
To visit the Navajos, and I grew up with them. So I'm all, for a while, I never knew like the Hopi slang. So I was just like saying "a" all the time.
You were an A-er. Huh?
I was an A-er, man. I was like "a," and I think some of my friends, when I met up with some of my Hopi friends, they were questioning if I was Navajo or not, because basically I looked like one. So
no disagreement for me on that. But I think that, the real genesis of this episode is that, we've been talking a lot of things that are pretty predominantly relating to Hopi, and the fact, Navajos do have such a big tie-in with our culture, our experiences, because then if you go back to all of our previous episodes, especially in season 1, almost every single episode we reference Navajos.
Oh, yeah.
In some regard, and, they're our neighbors. And then so especially you and I growing up in Tuba, and then me being from that we have had extensive experiences being around Navajo folks, and then even having them within our families. And so that today I won't lie, I am feeling a little bit of nervous.
Oh yeah,
feeling the nerves about what potentially could be said. So I guess after this we'll see if we still have any Navajo friends left after this episode. And so, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best to, navigate these topics and, the conversations to where, it's not to where we're apologizing that, if it gets too intense for some of the listeners out there, or we apologize if it's not intense enough. For some of the listeners out there, because I know that, once we do this episode, I'm pretty sure, I'll get those messages from folks and say, oh, you should have said this in regards to Hopi and Navajos. But then, for me, it really is. And I think that you agree with this, is that, there are people out there from the Navajo Nation that we do care dearly about.
Oh, yeah,
that we love.
That we, there are, because Hopis and Navajos have been at war for centuries and centuries, but with intermarriage and interfriendships and everything like that and everything in between, the younger generation or the newer generation has kind of grown accustomed to having that mixed culture or that mixed relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, when I talk to So or Kwa, they don't have any relations to Navajos, although, Kwa had worked with the Navajos for nearly 50 years.
Oh, yes.
Half of his life, basically.
Yes.
And, he's friends with them, and he even knows how to speak Navajo. A lot of those older
to a degree.
Yeah. A lot of older Navajo or older Hopi generations
Mm-hmm,
know how to speak Navajo.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And then even within my own family, my mom always tells me stories of her Kwa, who was a Tuhikya.
Oh, really?
And then so she would always relate the stories to us about how the Navajos would always come to him to get healed.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, he was in possession of a lot of Navajo jewelry. And then also, too, that he could speak the Navajo language to an extent.
Yeah.
And then I think that, at least in my mind, in regards to this episode, I think that one of the reasons why I kind of pushed to have this episode was because it all started with Kylie Jenner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not, it all started with Kylie Jenner.
Why?
And so if you recall, I think it was around the springtime when Kylie Jenner made her visit to around in the Page area.
Really?
And she was vacationing. I believe it was probably the northern part of Page in Utah. And, she's, so famous and her social media following is so large that when she shared images, pictures of herself on vacationing in Page, that, it really, I guess it really angered a lot of Navajo folks. Because then, they were arguing that, how dare she, come visit our reservations during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And especially when they were having the lockdowns on the weekends to where a lot of folks on the reservation couldn't travel. And, they're very upset about that, she's visiting our lands and that it's not something that we're able to do in our own areas.
Yeah.
And then so that was a pretty huge controversial thing. But then, a lot of Navajo folks were sharing this post on social media. But then it got to a point where then a lot of Ute people kind of started sharing their opinions and saying, whoa, hold on. This land that you're claiming to be Navajo is actually Ute land.
Yeah.
And then so there was this one individual who kind of shared his perspective about it. And, he kind of used this term. I can't remember exactly what the term was, but basically what its definition is that when you speak on topics, that you speak on it in a way that the way that you perceive it is the absolute divine truth. You know what I mean? And so I think what he was trying to say is that, sometimes that when the bigger groups, the larger tribes like the Navajo kind of speak on certain topics, that they kind of speak on it in a way that how we see it, how we perceive it is the way. That's the history. And so I think that was kind of one of the things that clicked on my head. And then when this Ute individual kind of shared his perspective, then a lot of non-Navajo natives were sharing his perspective because I think that they felt the same way. And I think that, for sure, a lot of Hopis do feel that way about our neighboring Navajo friends. And I think that's kind of where a lot of this animosity comes from.
Yeah, Kylie Jenner, she's she's hot. That's basically all I have to say. She can visit the Hopi lands all she wants.
Whether you're Hopi or Navajo, she's hot.
I'll make her some bit of it to come over to the Hopi side.
We'll welcome her.
We'll walk her over here to our sacred shrines. You want to take a selfie? Take a bikini pic.
Take it on top of Carl's Soto's house.
So if Kelly, if Kylie Jenner is listening to this, call me.
and so I think that in today's episode, we're not necessarily really going to cover like the extensive histories of the issues that we've had, the infamous Navajo and Hopi land dispute, or anything in regards to that, but mostly covering our experiences. So going into that, kind of, I guess some of the early lessons, early teachings that were taught as Hopis, like from your earliest memories. And unfortunately, that a lot of the teachings that we are taught by our own people about our neighbors, the Navajos, sometimes that they can be very negative.
Oh yeah.
Or sometimes they're very derogatory, because then, when you're a young kid growing up and then your brain is just eager for information, and then growing up in Munkapi, you kind of were aware that there was this other group of people around called the Navajos.
And when you grow up in Munkapi, there is that line, the border line, the highway line, where it's like, this side is Hopi, and then when you cross it, that's Navajo side there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's kind of strange, because when I rode the bus from Hopi to Navajo, and every time that was the daylight savings time, I have to get up on the Hopi side where it has no daylight savings time, and then cross over to adjust my clock in order to match the Navajo side where I was going to school from. It was very confusing at the time.
It is very confusing. And then even as growing up as a kid, because I remember clearly, kind of being this young kid, and then asking people, who are the Navajo? Who are these Navajo people? Yeah. And, the response that I got was, they're these other Indians, and they stole our land.
And that's basically like the history of all Hopi, and they steal our culture, and they steal our land, and never trust those guys.
And so unfortunately that does develop that negative stereotype of our neighbors as being thieves. And so unfortunately growing up as kids, that we did use to call each other Navajo as a form of an insult. Yeah. And so that if there were kids on the playground that were either known for stealing, or known for, or they get caught stealing, then that's what you would call them. That guy's just a Navajo.
That guy's just a Navajo.
You damn Navajo, that was kind of the thing that you said. And then it's not until, you grow up and that you actually intermingle with them, and just like anything else, to debunk these stereotypes, that you do meet individuals that are stand-up people, that are hard workers, and that really kind of are admirable people, because I'm pretty fortunate, we do have numerous in-laws that come from the Navajo Nation, and especially the men, very hard workers, and we're very appreciative of them too. And even just yesterday, we were celebrating one of my sisters. Her baby she has a baby with a Navajo, and they had his first laugh. I don't know what it's called. It's called a ceremony or first laugh party.
First laugh thingy.
And so they had that, and then big shout out to our Navajo Iron Man, Tommy Billy, because he really does have all the sikwi, and we ate really good yesterday as a result of it, and so that's kind of an example of where we are, somebody that we do appreciate.
So I'm taking this Tommy Billy guy is real meenang to you guys, right?
Yeah.
Does he know?
Yeah, of course. We tell him all the time, man. Like, thank God you're here, man.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know what other man would put up with my sister the way that you do.
I have bigger sikwi than that guy, so I don't know what meenang you're talking about.
I don't doubt. I doubt that.
But speaking on the whole relationship between like Hopis and Navajos, I think every Hopi family around here has relationship with Navajos in a sense.
Have some sort of either in-laws or friendships
or ex-laws. Either way you look at it, I mean, every Hopi around here has some sort of relationship to a Navajo.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I get really annoyed when people insinuate that it's just Munkapis that have Navajos within our villages.
Well, out towards this way, we like to take relationship with white people. So there's a lot of doll sellers that like to sell their dolls to the white people. So,
but it's really interesting though, because then we did grow up with these negative stereotypes of our neighbors, but then even within our own cultures, that the Navajo culture really does have an influence, because we mentioned before on one of our episodes about our social dances that we have.
Oh yeah,
that we do have social dances that honor the Navajo neighbors. That we have other ceremonies that have Navajo styles of dress and Navajo styles of song that's really integrated within what it is that we do. And they're very popular. They're very popular.
They actually are
amongst
very
our
popular.
people.
Yep.
And, for me, at least, I really do enjoy our version of Navajo songs that we have, because I think that the style is a little bit more upbeat. And then the way that they sing, is a little bit higher pitched than how traditionally Hopi sing.
Yeah.
But then I guess, these days, a lot of Hopi boys do sing with like Navajos. So... This paid sponsorship was paid for by Justin Villarreal. Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence is a grassroots organization whose mission is to assist our Indigenous students in their pursuit of education. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up with upcoming distributions.
Well, now the younger generation does.
Yeah, they don't sing like our villages. They don't sing like men.
Well, I think it's because of the influence of Pueblo nations, because they do kind of sing like that. If you listen to other Pueblos, they kind of sing higher in that higher tone, not necessarily just the younger generation being influenced by other like Navajo, but it's being influenced by other like Pueblo cultures.
And then I think that, aside from I mean, we're not all taught, just negative stereotypes about, the Navajos growing up. I think that some of the historical contexts were taught to us because, once upon a time there were, I guess, if you want to call them wars or battles, to where there's stories, at least from our historical perspective, of Navajos coming in and attacking Hopi villages and raiding, and then even taking women and children too as well. And so even within my own experience, I have come across individuals that Navajo individuals that do relate their own family history, where they'll say that either their great grandma or their great great grandmother was actually Hopi. That was taken from one of the villages.
But I guess, with the understanding, the history of the understanding was that when famine hit the Hopi reservation, Navajos were kind of that gateway to say that, okay, you guys have sikwi, or you guys have a little bit of food, and you guys don't have much children. Can I give you one of my children for you to raise? And it wasn't like that with just Navajos. It was like that with all sorts of Pueblos. So you do have that history of like Hopi children growing up in a different culture
or a different tribe, and those types of stories too also do exist, to where there is some sort of cooperation between the tribes. And then I guess on a positive side and in a cooperation side, that's another thing too that you do learn about, is that you learn about that back in the day that the Navajos would come to the villages. They would go to the villages to trade mutton for corn. And so those were kind of some of those early relationships that were established. And then I think that the other thing too, well, I guess Navajo, even the term Navajo, that's not what they call themselves. I believe that they call themselves Dene. And then in our language, I guess the popular term now, what we call them is Tasava. Tasava. But then the old term, if you talk to some of the old people, that the actual old term for Navajo is Kalainkam.
Oh, yeah.
Forehead people. And they're called that because how traditionally that the Navajos wear their hair, that it's pulled to the back, exposing the forehead, making the forehead look big. And so in today, you'll still hear some of the older people referring to the Navajos in that way. If you see a Navajo man, mi'kalaitaka. Or if you see a Navajo lady, mi'kalaiwuti. Or, and so forth with all the other terms. So that's, I guess, was the original term for our neighbors. And so I guess with you going up to the public school so earlier than I did in my life, what are some early recollections that you have making that big transition from being around mostly nothing but Hopis to being around Navajos?
Well, we had to sing, what is it? What's that? The Pledge of Allegiance in Navajo.
Do you remember how to sing it?
I don't know how to sing it anymore or say it anymore. So, but that was like the biggest transition that was there, because a lot of the Navajo kids were like, saying all their traditional Navajo in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're just standing there like, what do we do? I was like, oh. That's all we knew as little kids. We just said the "oat" word.
Even if they taught you, your tongue probably couldn't make those S noises. That's pretty prevalent in their language.
The clicky sounds. Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things, too, that we did forget to mention at the very beginning of the podcast, is that we actually do have a special guest today.
We do have a special guest.
We have a special guest today.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, instead of us just, giving our perspective, we wanted to give the opportunities for the Navajo side to be heard. And so we have a friend that was a high school buddy of mine, junior high school buddy of mine, somebody that went to school with both of us.
I think he did graduate with us, right?
He did graduate
with us. He did graduate. So class of 2003, I'd like to welcome Donavan Goldtooth.
Yes, hey.
Hey, Don. So
how's it going, Dylan?
It's going pretty well. So we're excited to have you here and then to share your perspective. So basically, you got the weight of the whole Navajo Nation on your shoulders. So
you're actually representing. You're representing Navajo. So careful.
I'll just say I'm representing the Western Navajo side.
Representing the Western agency.
The West Side, huh?
Yeah, Western. There you go.
Well, it's great to have you on the show, and I'm pretty sure that you're a fan of Carl and J-Man, right?
At least a fan of J-Man, maybe not so Carl.
Since day one, even your YouTube clips are funny.
So we want to settle a debate against this. So who has one of the most beautiful voices on the podcast here? Now, no pressure.
That's it.
If you say Carl, Don, I'm never speaking to you ever again. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just like hearing those golden pipes between the both of you come out from Hopi land. I think it's you both being in your homeland that it makes it great. So I'm gonna avoid that question and not answer
it. Okay, no problem. And so moving the conversation forward, one of the things that we definitely wanted to get is because we did give our perspective of what we were taught and kind of a little bit of our experiences growing up as kids. So Donavan, what early memories do you have of Hopi people and their villages?
Well, you know that my family married into your family basically through my uncle, Uncle Rick, and not only that, but my other aunt is married to another Hopi man out who's from Montgomery, Upper Montgomery, and then his other family's from Second Mesa. So growing up, I've always had this exposure to Hopis and Hopis' way of life.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And the ceremonies brought over a plethora of guests during those times. There is where Navajos would bring over their mutton and Hopis would share their biki with them, and that's just one thing. That's just one way of getting to know each other, having friendships between two cultures, especially two unique cultures, basically. So, and because of the language that is very, very different, doesn't follow the similarities as Pueblo language, but to getting to technical terms of Athabascan language. So
I really enjoy when you try to steer the ship, Carl. I think it's really cute. And so, Donavan, another question for you, I guess, I guess from the Navajo perspective, in terms of the history, Tuba City, right? That's a place that you grew up where it's, kind of, I've always thought of Tuba and Munkapi area kind of as this real unique area because it was kind of a juncture where a lot of different cultures kind of intersect. But, growing up in that area, what's some of your historical knowledge, I guess, from how you were taught as a kid in terms of Navajo and Hopi relations?
Well, you touched on it earlier, talking about how there was intermarriages between, because I found out that basically my great-great-grandmother was half Hopi, and she knew Hopi. So I guess I'm part Hopi. I don't know what quantum is, but that, and also, like, we have always lived with the Hopi side by side. Speaking from my mother's side of the family, they're from Big Mountain. The whole relocation thing did affect them, but you did happen to talk about how that trade was going on between Hopi and Navajo. My mom would share stories about her and her grandparents would go to basically Second Mesa or to the other villages around Hopi land and trade with them mud and corn for apricots, peaches, and I think more squashes and whatnot. And they were dried out all the time. They would also go to ceremonies over on Second Mesa, not only that, but weddings and and so forth. But pretty much, growing up in Tuba, you had the dichotomy of it being kind of like a melting pot, so to speak. But I never thought of the melting pot. You had your distinctive Hopi side, that imaginary highway, and you had the Navajo side, to the city. But, they always lived in tandem with each other.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective. But, growing up too, I was always had that privilege of attending dances down in Monkopi. Growing up too, a favorite of mine was basket dance because I was able to pretty much reach up and grab stuff out of the air because of my height. But other than that, pretty much history between Navajo and Hopi was always a good one from how I was taught, how I was pretty much educated by my family. As far as like meeting other people who didn't grow up in Tuba, other Navajos. As we left the reservation and I met them down here in the cities, on Autumn land, they would really have a bad negative stereotype about Hopis. They would bring out all the bad words against Hopis, and they weren't very favorable in their eyes, especially people from Chinle and Ganado. Not that they're Central Asian into the West, but that's just how different perspectives I picked up.
Yeah, I think that within my experience, I've been called some of those names, and I never understood why it is that a lot of them thought that we went number 2 off the cliffs.
Yeah, there you go.
Wait, you guys went number 2 off the cliffs?
Well, there's no cliffs in Munkapi, so they're probably talking about you, Carl, going off the cliffs in Hotvela.
Yeah, probably.
And so, Donovan, another real serious question that's seriously up for debate, and I really do think that there's a difference. And I'm pretty sure that you've probably tasted it. What's the difference between Navajo fry bread and Hopi fry bread?
Oh no, here it comes.
It's all the same as long as the bluebird flour. It's all good because I've had both. They're very good.
Oh, really? I've always thought that the Navajo fry bread was thinner and was crispier.
Really?
And I always thought that the Hopi ladies, when they made their fry bread, that it was a little bit more doughier.
But then again, I do have the palate of a red dog. I'll eat anything that's good that comes from home. It comes from cooked by an Indian woman, Indian person.
Well, you did touch on something that, I thought that I kind of learned too, because I think growing up so close to Navajos, I think that we had this interpretation, or at least we had this thought that we thought that all Navajos knew about Hopis. But it wasn't until that I went to school out at Albuquerque, New Mexico, over at SIPI, that I really learned that, because of how large the Navajo reservation is, that there are a lot of Navajos that know very little about Hopis, especially the ones that, live furthest away from our villages, so like the New Mexico Navajos and even the Utah Navajos.
Yeah.
And most of their interminglings and dealings with other tribes were with those tribes that are living in those areas, mostly our Pueblo relatives and other Apache tribes.
Yeah, because I've heard that too. Because I lived in Albuquerque for 2 years, which I knew Mr. Green Chili, and I've heard that too. I talk about the Hopis, and I would get some of my coworkers out there in Albuquerque asking what are Hopis. I have to tell them. So they're basically another tribe out there in northern Arizona. They live next to us. They're kind of like Pueblo, but kind of not.
So, did you go to any secondary school after high school?
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Like my educational background.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got my bachelor's degree from Northern Arizona in business administration. I completed my accounting degree while living on Albuquerque University in New Mexico. And right now, I'm working on an Indigenous law degree from Master's in Indigenous Law from the University of Oklahoma.
So the reason why I was asking that is because when we went to college, we were being asked by white people if we still lived in teepees or rode horses. So I was wondering if that was the same thing for you as well.
And how did you feel about it?
Yeah,
when you were asked those questions.
Well, it was just like, what, are you serious? Like, no, we don't have teepees. Some Navajos do use teepees, but it's more for a ceremonial purpose. But no, I live in a house, a regular house. And I know you guys touched on the past. You just mentioned it too. And how infuriating it was to try to explain yourself all the time to these non-Indigenous Biliganas. We call them Biliganas Navajo. You call them Pahanas. How we live. Like, yeah, we just live a regular way of life. I mean, I live in a town of 10,000 people. There's these fast food places there. There's stores there. We have a grocery store there. But, it's just, they still thought that we were still running around in loincloths, living in teepees. There was no infrastructure at all in the reservation. Some people I met, I had to explain myself. Like, yeah, we're still here. Natives are still here. People are still here. They thought we were all extinct. We all died off, which is kind of sad.
Huh. Yeah, actually, I thought when I was going to college, that was kind of something that was brought up as well, too, was that one of the white people that said that to me thought that we were kind of extinct in a way. And I was like, wow, I think we are, too. So, there's not a lot of Hopis that are around here. There's only 12,000 Hopis that are kind of registered with the last census, but I don't know how many Hopis now. So yeah, it is. I kind of understand that where, you still have to explain yourself in those situations where you have to kind of tell them who you are and what you are, basically.
Yeah, like you have to basically say, yeah, we're still here. We're still around. People your ancestors stole your land from are still here. Nothing all political and everything, but yeah.
And so, Donavan, I think that, one of the things that Carl kind of touched upon at the beginning of the episode, which I think is fairly true, because I think that, in our younger years, I think that even since when we were children, I think that the times have changed and a lot of things have changed, because I think even, we're not very old, but we're not very young either. But I mean, even since we were younger, that maybe that the villages or Hopis and Navajos in regard to that were a little bit more segregated, because I know that I remember going to school at the day school that it was predominantly Hopi, that it was mostly Hopi students. And then now, you look at the day school now, I think that it's equally 50-50, that the student body is half Hopi and half Navajo. And I think that just comes with the changing times, that a lot more of our people are moving to the urban areas and then, intermingling, intermarrying. And that's kind of where you get a lot of individuals that are a part of both cultures. And, having that experience, and even for those individuals, I think that they have a story to tell, because unfortunately, when we were young, and I don't know if it was the truth for you guys, Donavan, back, in your early years, but, a lot of those kids that were a part of both cultures used to get teased a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically go to public school all my life there in Tuba City. I knew about the day school because some of my cousins went there. The boarding school was always, from back then, that boarding school was like, for those Johnny Navajos, those wild Navajos to come out from Inscription House, or to come out from the wild parts of the reservation. And public school is more elite. I kind of want to say that I was segregated to at the public school, because I was always put in the more so-called advanced classes with the students, so we were kind of shunned away from the rest of the student population. It was pretty much the advanced classes, and I never really learned the Pledge of Allegiance to Navajo until I learned it in high school and taking Navajo class. And that, the only Hopis we interacted with, there were some Hopis in our classes, and they would pretty much. I don't think we really picked on because we were pretty much taught to respect one another. But like during recess and lunchtime and whatnot, you would see you interact with everybody else, other people, other students in those schools, and how much they would talk really badly about Hopis, and especially if you weren't Hopi, they're like being passionate and whatnot. And like I remember one thing was like, "Oh, you're short like a Hopi," which is like wow. You go today, it's like wow. Yeah, I saw it all. Navajos pick on Hopis and Hopis pick on Navajos, and it's something that I guess you got to learn growing up. Tough it out, I guess.
That's true, and and like you said, we do have those common relatives from your uncle and my sister's marriage, and I think that's a pretty prevalent thing now, that you have those individuals that come from both cultures and they have to deal with the teasing on both sides, because I've heard from those types of individuals that say that when they're with their Hopi families, they're constantly teased that they're being called that they're Navajo, or that they're really Navajo, and then the opposite when they visit their Navajo families and they're being teased and they're being called, oh, you guys are Hopi, and then all the stereotype and derogatory comments that come with that go there. And so that's probably a topic for another episode, the Navajo Hopis, I think is what they call themselves. And so I think that a lot has changed since those earlier years when we've experienced a lot of that type of I guess separation, but now the fact that I think that we work harder, and there's a lot of more places that we intersect. In your experience, Donavan, are with your profession or with your education, how often do you have to work with Hopis?
I want to say I never really worked with a Hopi. Working at my current job, I've been with them for about 10 years now. I never experienced another Hopi. Which I run into a lot of Optums because it's an Optum-run enterprise. There was no Hopi student I was working out in Albuquerque. It was all Pueblos. Pueblos are the Navajos. I did run into a lot of Plains Indians because a lot of Plains Indians somehow migrated towards New Mexico, especially Santa Fe and the Albuquerque area. But I don't think I ever met a Hopi in my line of work.
The Indige Design Collab are Indigenous designers collaborating to bring creative people and ideas closer together through education, communication, and creative expression. They explore, cultivate, and indigenize space. Indige Design Collab is having a call for entry starting September 1st for digital artwork for their second annual design show. The theme is Rise to Vote. For more information, they can be found on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, like, because Hopis are kind of just into like their own area, where the furthest that they'll probably span to is like the Phoenix region. So like, there is no, going out to Albuquerque and going out to New Mexico. Further than that, I mean, it is going to be kind of rare to find a Hopi out there. And especially because, we're so tied to the culture that we just want to stick around, close to the reservation because of that. So.
For sure. And I think is that we're a much smaller tribe.
Oh, yeah.
We're a much smaller tribe in comparison to the Navajo. And so that there are less of us out there. And so like, I'm pretty sure, I know within my collegiate experience, and Carl, when you probably had your college experience, it was similar that when, regardless of where you went, whether, it was college universities here in Arizona or anything that was close by, that when it came to other Native students, that you would meet a lot of Navajo students.
Yeah.
A lot of other Navajo students. And then for the most part, there was like maybe one or three other Hopis that you would come across. So, even within our own experiences being Hopi, that you did tend to kind of come across more Navajos than you would with people of your own tribe.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, it's to where we are very small. We are very small in a way where we just don't branch out further enough. And it's nothing that's bad, but it's just that we just want, because we are so tied to the culture, like I said before, we just want to stick around, to the villages. So we just don't have that experience like Navajos do, where their experiences are all out there. They're in like Denver and Utah and all over the map there. And it's nothing bad to say that, where the culture is not there, but it's just to say that you guys put that aside and then do what you need to do, rather than Hopis put culture first and then trying to see what we can do afterwards. So.
Mm-hmm. And so, Donovan, another serious question for you. Describe to us your first experience consuming the Hopi delicacy, the Hopi cookies.
It was utter bliss, so to speak. I remember getting them after certain dances happened down at Mount Hopi.
Yeah.
Because we would get a lot of tiki and a lot of pies and cakes and a lot of cookies like that from the Hopi in-laws, so to speak, during the dances, because I found it would actually help, bake bread and whatnot for dances and whatnot. And it would just be a really, really good, delicate treat. Very, very delicious treat, especially when it was tied up with strips of bluebird flour back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I always thought that was the best thing. And, of course, today, anybody can make it, because this recipe that you guys had are pretty much leaked to Navajos, and now we call it Hopi cookies for sale.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very good. So.
And so I don't know if Carl had this experience, but I remember being in high school that was kind of a way to get the Navajo girls that you kind of liked.
Really?
That you would wait till after a dance, and then you would steal your mom or your sister's cookies that she got from the Katsinam the night before, and then you would sneak it out and then take it to school, and then there you are giving it to all the Navajo girls that you like. And then you're kind of looking at the Navajo guys, with a little sly smile on your face, and yeah, buddy, I got it like that.
Sure, buddy.
So, in high school, you said you were in advanced classes. You were in the advanced class, right? So you never.
Well, it's talking like between kindergarten until I think 8th grade.
Uh-huh.
And then of course, high school came and all pretty much intermingled. We were allowed to take classes we're allowed to take. Like we all ran each other, running through the high school hallways and the commons area. I think for the most part, I did take advanced classes in high school.
Ah, okay. So, did we ever have classes together? I know it's an odd question, but
I know. I kind of want to say it was a Denver class. It was one of those elective, those career-oriented classes.
Uh-huh. You weren't in art. You weren't in art class, were you? The what was his name? That Bahana guy. That what was his name? Kitron? Was it Kitron?
Yeah, Kitron. No. I never took the class.
No, I guess I spent most of my time in Mr. Kitron's class. That's why. Dene Mahapi Arts is a modern art made with traditional values. Dene is involving artists who is innovative through her artwork, while incorporating contemporary modern trends and bright colors being the base of her work. Hopi traditional elements is her main focus, giving her artwork an intricate finish. Though she's living in today's modern society, she paints meaning and value of traditional designs to showcase and symbolizes her upbringing out on Hopi. She specializes in customized painted earrings to her colorful, bright canvas paintings, and much more. Dene can be found on Instagram at D Mahapi Arts, where you can find and support her one-of-a-kind art pieces. So
I might have hanging out there, but I might have taken I took one class. I don't remember. It's so long ago.
Well, it's almost to that time where
I think we have time for one more question, though. So, Donovan, I guess with your with your knowledge of kind of I guess maybe the Navajo Nation government and the Hopi Tribal Council, because growing up in Tuba, I'm pretty sure that you're aware of a lot of some of the attempted working relationships with each other, and some things to that regard. Because I know that sometimes, and this is why I think that maybe that the younger generation is kind of growing up a little bit more integrated with one another, more so than we did back when we were growing up. But I know that sometimes some of these issues arise that kind of the whole community is kind of made aware of. And I know that one that's kind of a hot topic right now is getting internet. the Navajo Nation's trying to get internet, sufficient internet installed for their tribe, and I think the biggest barrier is getting the fiber optics cable ran through parts of the Hopi reservation, and then Facebook being the way Facebook is, and the natives interacting with Facebook on how that they do it. And so sometimes, you hear people talking about, things like that. And I think that oftentimes that there's a lot of misunderstandings or information that people don't know, because I know that on the Navajo side, you have some prominent individuals within the Tuba City community kind of bringing, attention to these issues, talking about, we're trying to do this for our children, we're trying to do this for their education, but we need to get this through Hopi, and we need to get Hopi on board. And then that's kind of where, I think that a lot of this historical stuff is missing, not understanding that, the animosities that do exist, and, the reasons why Hopi might be hesitant or even restraining from being a part of that. But kind of a long way to this question. What are some ways do you think that Hopi and Navajo could work together for the betterment of the communities, at least for our communities that are living closest together?
That's a good question. I know I heard the whole debate about getting fiber optic into Tuba. There is internet on the reservation, and Navajo as whole has fiber optic, but Tuba is the last biggest community to actually receive it, because the Hopi reservation is in the way, so to speak. Not to speak bad, but from what I've heard from people I talk to who are high in the government positions in Window Rock, a lot of the elected officials out in Window Rock don't really understand, don't really grasp the whole concept of how Tuba operates. They've always said that Tuba and Mokopi are pretty much unique in a sense, because we did grow up side by side, Hopi and Navajo. But they don't grasp that concept. In Window Rock, they're more like the whole tribalism mindset sets in, meaning that we're going to do what's best for Navajo, and we're not going to give, I guess, a fair share to the Hopi tribe. I know the big debate is trying to get fiber optic to Tuba, and one little hurdle is that little strip by the highway, the reservoir turnoff, to get it to go over. And I've heard discussions about that, and they're trying to pay Hopi $10,000 a month. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I heard.
You heard it here, folks.
And I think for Hopi and Navajo to work better, we need to get, I hate to say it, I hate to advocate for this, even though it's the only way I see it to be done, is to get more elected officials from Tuba to get into higher government offices in Window Rock. But then again, I'm always advocating for Western Navajo to break off from the rest of the reservation, because Window Rock just puts a lot of blockades for Western side of the reservation. That's just like the politics of it all. But other than that, it's just like getting people who understand the whole dichotomy of Hopi, Navajo, and Tuba City among Hopi, and how they work out there. Because we all grew up with each other. We're all Hopi now. We're all friends. Like right now, we're talking. I'm a Navajo. You guys are Hopi. We grew up with each other. We schooled each other. It's just like, just need to get it done. It's easily said than actually done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Donavan.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. And then, this is such a broad topic, and, there are so many other areas and components that relate to it that, we didn't even get to touch upon now. So, this potentially could be a part 2 moving on towards the future. And so we thank you for that. And, I think that we did a fairly okay job talking about, kind of this uncomfortable conversation, from both sides. And so, with that, we thank you all for listening to us. And then, like we said, we've been saying before, if you'd like to support us, come visit our Anchor site at anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85. Don't forget, we're on Instagram, and we're also on Twitter.
Yeah, and we also have a YouTube channel, so go and check that out. We'll be making a lot of more episodes that showcase our quirkiness to the mass fans that we have, or mass fans that I have now. So Thank you again, Donavan, for taking time out of your day to speak with us. I know that 45 minutes is not enough time to do anything, but thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, you guys are welcome. Yeah, even though this is a very decisive topic, you guys are getting it to be talked about, to have discussion, and have to move forward to at least move to some conclusion.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you again. My name is Carl, and this is J-Man. Thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. So long. Bye-bye.